Hello? 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 Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Okay then. So let's start with what you call introduction. So this is a data stage demo, right? Yeah?
Yeah.
So let's get started with the introduction. So about myself, I have studied from IIT Madras. After that, I worked for a couple of companies for more than 16 years. Yeah. Now I'm running my own company along with this training as a part-time activity. Yeah. So that is a brief introduction about myself. Probably you guys can go over about your introduction and let me know the expectation from this training so that we can customize based on what you need. Yeah? Right? Please go on a mute, yeah? Or else there will be a disturbance. Yeah? Fine. So one of you guys can get started about your introduction. So I can't see anybody here. Raghu or Anu, can you please?
Hello?
Ask them. Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah. Who is this?
Yeah, this is Pravas.
Name please. Say it again.
Pravas Chaudhary.
Hi, Pras. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Go ahead. You can just brief about your introduction.
Yeah, hi, this is Pravas Chaudhary. I am from Bangalore. Yeah, I am working in CGI software industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Okay.
work
Good,
in,
Prabhas.
sorry?
So how many years of experience you have, Prabhas?
I have 1.5 years experience.
Okay, Prabhas. Okay. Fine. So anybody else is there?
No. Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Alinda Banerjee.
Hi,
Sir,
Banerjee.
may I know your good name, please, sir?
Simha.
Sorry?
Simha. My name is
Simha.
Nasimha Reddy. So
Okay.
shortcut is Simha. Yeah.
Uh,
Yes, Banerjee. Go ahead.
yes, in data warehouse.
We can't hear you, Banerjee. Looks like there is
Uh,
a mic problem from your end.
Sima, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you very clearly. Yeah, go ahead, Banerjee.
Okay.
Banerjee?
So this is, and
Yeah.
I'm having 2.5. Yes.
Yeah, go
Uh,
ahead.
I'm working with Tata Consultancy Services. Yes, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm having 2.5 years of experience in data warehouse.
Okay, good. Oh, good to know that, Banerjee. Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Fine. So let's get started. I hope you guys could able to see my desktop, right? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So I was an architect for data stage, so you can ask any kind of question at any time. Yeah. So which means what? So please do not hesitate on asking questions. Yeah? you can just stop me at any time and start asking questions. You know, whether it is a simple question or complex question, doesn't matter. Yeah.
Okay.
Please go on your mute, otherwise there will be a disturbance. Yeah. Yeah. If you have a question, right, you can just unmute by yourself and start asking questions. Yeah. Yeah. Let us get started with what we call introduction. So what introduction? This is introduction to Datastage. Yeah. Datastage is one of the ETL tool. Yeah. I think about myself you guys are aware, right? I have around 17 years of experience. Yeah. So that is my experience, and I worked for Datastage product in IBM for a couple of years, and now I am with my own company. Yeah. So as you could see here, as part of this training, what I do is I'll start with what I call very basic elementary concepts about data warehousing, where I will talk about, yeah, you guys need to go on a mute. Looks like there is a lot of disturbance. Yeah. Yeah. In the sense, what we need to do here, what I do is, I'll start with what I call data warehousing concepts, like what is a data warehousing and when to go for this, and the business reasons of why we need to think on going for data warehousing. Yeah. So after successful completion of that, then we will talk about key characteristics that would be influenced in order to build the data warehouse. Yeah. And then once we understand the characteristics, like we have subject oriented, time variant, non-volatile, integrated, and so on, right? And each of these key measuring attribute or characteristic will be discussed in detail with practical examples. Yeah? After completion of that, then I'll start with what we call data warehouse architecture, which means what comes in, what goes out, what happens in between. Those things will be discussed in detail with industry examples. Yeah? For example, what happens in data warehousing is we are going to get the data from homogeneous and heterogeneous source systems, like we have structured data, unstructured data, and so on, right? Yeah. So once we get the data from the source systems, what we are going to do with the data? Yeah. Which means, are we going to apply any business rules in order to meet any kind of business requirement? If yes, answer is what? ETL tools. That is where extract, transform, and loading would come into picture. Yeah? Which means once you could able to read the data, apply ETL tools and start what we call building the data warehouse. Yeah? So I've just described in simple terms, but I'll explain in detail with practical examples once we start actual training. So now I'll just describe at very high level so that you will get to know what would be covered as part of this particular training program. Yeah. So once we understand that, the next step is going to be what? How are we going to build a data model from scratch by identifying what you call dimensions and facts. Yeah. So which means first of all, why do you need to think on going for building a data model? So data model could be expressed in terms of conceptual model, logical model, and physical model. Yeah. So which is the best among all, and when to go for what? Yeah. Those things will be discussed in detail, and then we are going to emphasize, or we are going to stress on what we call different predefined existing dimensional modeling techniques, like we have star schema model, snowflake schema model, star extension schema model, galaxy schema model, fact constellation schema model, and so on. Yeah. And once we know this, I'll talk about how do you make multiple dimensions and facts to talk to each other. So those things will be discussed with industry examples like a healthcare, telecom, banking, or retail, and so on, so that you guys can understand better in the context of what we call which dimensional model need to be used where. Yeah. Having said that, there is a concept of what we call slowly changing dimension that we have in the warehouse. Yeah. So which will be used in order to take care of what we call initial loads and what we call incremental loads, which means in case, let us say today you processed n number of records, let's say n is the 1 million numbers, 1 million records. Yeah. And with that, assuming that you have built the data warehouse. Now tomorrow, if you get 2 million records, out of them 500,000 records are going to be what we call the records which are already processed by the previous batch run. In the sense, those things will be taken care of by using what we call slowly changing dimensions, which means what got changed, what did not change in terms of each record. Those things will be identified in SCD, or slowly changing dimensions, with different types of what we have within that particular slowly changing dimensions, like we have type 1, type 2, type 3. Yeah. So I'll talk about which type need to be used where, and the reasons why we need to use those types. Yeah. So once we complete that, then we will get to know where exactly ETL tools need to be used. Yeah. Like Datastage, Ab initio, Power Center, Pentaho, Talent, and so on. There are n number of commercial ETL tools and n number of open source ETL tools that we have in the world. Out of them, Datastage is one of the good ETL tool. I will talk about the reasons why Datastage is better than what I call compared to other ETL tools that we have in the world. Yeah. So once we understand that, then we will get into what we call specifics of what we have in IBM InfoSphere. Yeah. So we have a big product which is a product of IBM, which we call IBM InfoSphere Information Server, which means it is a big product suite within which we have several tools. One among them is what we call Datastage. Yeah? So to get there, first let me start where exactly this Datastage comes in if we talk about IBM InfoSphere life cycle, which you could see as part of this particular slide. Yeah? Can you see here? This slide talks about what? There are 4 broad layers which you could see here, namely understand, cleanse, transform, and deliver. These are the 4 broad layers which you could see as part of this particular slide. Why do you need this? Let me explain. So first and foremost thing is what? Understand, which means what? Assuming that there is a way to read the data from the source systems. Like for example, assuming that you are going to get the data from a flat file which contains 1 million records. Now, what do we need to do? What does it contain? Does it contain what we call numeric data? Does it contain string data? Does it contain a mix of both? Or does it contain unstructured data? Yeah, which means data could be of any form, right? Yes or no? And within that, we can also have null data, not null data, duplicate data, and so on. Yes or no? Which means in order to understand or in order to explore what kind of data that we have in a given flat file, this understand layer is going to help us. In the sense, understand layer has got several tools. Within IBM InfoSphere information server product, we have a tool called information analyzer, which will be used to take care of this understand layer, which means using that particular tool, we are going to load the flat file data onto this analysis tool and start identifying like how many duplicates and null values we have with a given input flat file. So likewise, we have several attributes which will be discussed with a tool rather than what we call theory, right? So whatever I'm going to talk, those things will be explained with a tool that we are going to use it as part of actual training. Yeah? So that's what will be done as part of understand layer. Once we have done that, so any questions so far?
No. Okay.
So once we understand that, output of this, okay, output of this analyzed data would be taken as input to what we call next layer, which you could see here is what? Cleanse layer. Cleanse layer will be used in order to clean the data, in order to what we call come up with what we call unified representation of data that we call standardization. For example, let us say countries like India, where one guy will express India in terms of INDIA, some other guys will say IND, some other guys will say IN, and so on, right? Which means there are different ways to represent same data or same, let us say, country. Which means what do we need to do? If you look at what we call, if you look at this standardized way of representing that particular data, we need to come up with a what we call unified way which will be understood by everyone. That is where standardization would come into picture. To take care of that, we have what we call IBM quality stage, which will be used in order to standardize the data. Not only that, we also have other layers, namely match, merge layers. These are the important layers where we are going to use them in order to what we call identify duplicates and come up with what we call good data, which we call master data. Yeah? So that is what you will get as a result of IBM quality stage. Once we are done with that, then output of this quality stage will be taken as input to next layer, which you could see here is what? Transform layer. This is where Datastage comes into picture, where we are going to use Datastage to perform what? Transform. That is the important thing, which means convert one form of data with another form of data. That is what would be done as part of this Datastage. That's all we do. Yeah, but to take care of this transform, we have several stages within Datastage, which will be discussed in detail with practical examples. Yeah. Once we are done with that, then output of this Datastage will become as input to other layers or other tools, like we have synchronization tools and delivery tools and so on. So we are going to use them in order to see like what we produced against with what we got from the source system and compare, and if there are any deviations of what is being expected, those things will be taken care of as part of what we call synchronization layer. Yeah. So once we take care of that, then we can load that particular data onto the warehouse, which will be taken as input for taking the business decisions. That is where we use different reporting tools, like we have Cognos, BO, MicroStrategy, we have SSRS, we have what you call several reporting tools, like open source if we take, we have Pentaho reporting tools and so on. Yeah? So those tools will be used in order to what you call represent the data in a well visualized form, so that customers would look at those or that particular report and start taking business decisions. So that is what is the ultimate goal of what you call a warehouse. Why are we building warehouse? To take business decisions. Why? Today there could be a business where they are generating a revenue of $1 million, and if they go in this particular rate, after 5 years down the line or after 10 years down the line, what they could, in a sense, where are they going to be? To answer that, what we call warehouse is going to help us, which means what? Just to make it very simple, history data and what we call prediction data will be taken care of by using what we call warehouse, which means estimation of future demands or estimation of future exposures. Those things will be taken care of after building the warehouse successfully. That is why people need to think on going for what we call building the data warehouse. So IBM InfoSphere information server product is going to help us on doing that, yeah, within which we have what we call one tool which we call Datastage, which will be used for transforming the data. That is what we are going to focus as part of this particular training, right? And in the bottom you could see what we call unified metadata management. Metadata means what? Data over data, data about data. To make it very simple, we say that column name, column type, nullability, and the extended properties of each column, which means these things will be defined once, and then once you define that, anybody can make use of it. In the sense, understand layer, we have one tool, cleanse layer, we have another tool, transform layer, we have another tool, deliver layer, we have other tools. So which means all of them will make use of unified metadata. Unified means what? We are going to create metadata and put it in the repository that would be used by all other tools which you could see as part of this lifecycle management. That is why we use the term unified. Yeah? And on top of that, Datastage has got very good parallelism techniques, which means let us say today there is a 1 million data and tomorrow 1 billion data and day after 1 trillion data, which means what? As the data size, what you call, keeps growing, right? Which means how are we going to process this much of large volume of data? To answer that, we have to have parallel processing. So Datastage has got very good parallel processing technique which we are going to use in order to process the data like a 1 trillion rows or 1 billion rows in short span of time. That is why Datastage has become more popular because of it has got built-in parallelism techniques. Clear? So in the bottom you could see what I call connectivity to different applications, which means what? In case if you get data from SAP, CBEL, PeopleSoft, ERP, MRP and so on, how are we going to read data from those applications? To do that, we have what I call different plugins and connectors within the Datastage, which we are going to use them in order to get connected to those applications and start what I call applying different transformations. That is what would be done by using what I call connectors with different applications followed by Datastage transformations. Yeah? And then we also have data and content, which means what? Once you get connected to these applications, what we do? We should be in a position to read the data from those applications and start applying business rules which is required for the respective project. That is where connectors to different applications, and once you connect, start applying what we call different business rules. As a result of that, whatever is expected by the customer, which could be made quite easily by using what we call Datastage. Yeah? This is the simple explanation of what we have in this information lifecycle management. Yeah? In case if you need to know deeper insights to this particular lifecycle, please let me know so that I can elaborate that. Any questions so far?
Sina,
Fine. Yeah.
what about this information analyzer and quality stage? Does it come along with the data stage or it's a different tool altogether?
No, when you install Datastage from 8.5 onwards, you will get them automatically. In the sense, you will get analyzer as well as quality stage along with Datastage. Yeah?
Okay.
Fine. Now, let us get into what I call architecture of what we have in IBM InfoSphere Information Server. Remember, Datastage has got several versions, right from 1.02. Latest version is 9.x. In the sense, we have several versions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 7.5, 7.5.3, 8.0, 8.01, 8.1, 8.12, 8.5, 8.7, 8.7.1 and 9.0. We have several versions of what I call IBM InfoSphere Datastage. Yeah? From 8.0 onwards, this product is with IBM. Prior to that, this product was with another company which we call Essential. Yeah? So IBM bought that particular company, with a worth of $1.1 billion. Yeah? So after that, it has become the product of IBM product. Yeah? Now, after that, the architecture of what we use in IBM InfoSphere is totally different from what it was with what we call Essential. So when this product was with Essential, which means Datastage, it follows what we call simple client-server architecture, where we have what we call client, like we have designer, director, administrator, what we call manager. These are the four thick clients of what we have in what we call Datastage. Then on the server side, we have what we call Datastage server, which will be used to service what we call different client requests, like a designer, director, and so on. Yeah, that's a simple architecture. Underlying this Datastage server, we have what we call engine, which we call parallel engine, which will be used in order to process the data in short span of time, right? So this is a simple architecture, which means client, Datastage server, underlying parallel engine. That's all we have. And we also have one more thing, which we call repository, which is metadata repository, where we are going to store metadata information like columns, tables, what we call any other transforms, routines, and so on. Yeah, which means we can say that simple architecture that it follows is what? Client-server architecture, which means if I request something from a client, like a director, let's say, I need this functionality to be invoked and get me the proper response. Then for that, the request would be sent to Datastage server. Datastage server is going to service that particular request. Then you'll get response back to the requester, where you could see what you call the result of what you're going to expect. So that's all it happens in Datastage till what you call till 7.5.3 version of Datastage. Yeah, from 8.0 onwards, the architecture got changed from simple client server to what we call SOA based architecture, which we call service oriented architecture. That is what you could see in this particular slide, which means what? Everything would be expressed in terms of what we call services from 8.0 onwards, which means what? There is a introduction of what we call web-based support, in the sense, in order to monitor the activities of what is happening within this IBM InfoSphere information server, then we can use this admin console or centralized monitoring tool, through which we can keep track of who is doing what and when, all that. Which means what? It follows what we call, because it follows SOA based architecture, as an end result of that, we could able to what we call keep track of like of who's doing what by using which tool and so on. So that is where what we call architectural change that has been happened from 8.0 onwards. Yeah, so that's what you will see here, where we have what we call client. Can you see here in the client layer, we have what we call analysis interface, which is, let us say, information analyzer, development interface, which is a Datastage designer, web admin interface for centralized monitoring, which means where we create users, we create groups, we create roles, and assign a respective group or role with what we call associated tool, let us say Datastage. Let us say a user name by name, let us say U1, who will have access to Datastage. U2 will have access to quality stage. U3 might have access to all, which means what? That kind of controlling will be done by using what we call centralized tool, which we call admin console or web console. Yeah? So that is where web admin interface, it has been added from 8.0 only. It was not there in pre 8.0 versions. Yeah? That is the client part. Now, in the server layer, which you could see what we call different services, right? Yeah. As I said, there is a concept of what we call SOA, which is service-oriented architecture, which means what there is an introduction of what we call application server, which we call the IBM WebSphere, which means WebSphere, what it does is it is going to accept the request that we are going to get it from what we call web. For example, if I just type google.com, then what happens? Control will be sent to Apache web server or any IIS server, then followed by application server, which is a WebSphere, and followed by the respective services, which means the service corresponds to what I call google.com. That is what will happen if you look at what I call web-based architecture. Same concept holds good even in IBM InfoSphere information server architecture as well, where you could see the request that we get from web admin interface, admin console. This request would be sent to server, where you will have common services, which means what? When you bring up this application server, that is a WebSphere, it is going to bring up what we call different common services, namely metadata services, unified service deployment services, security services, logging and reporting services. These are the what I call core services, which will come up when you bring up what we call application server, namely WebSphere, which is a product of IBM again, which we call IBM WebSphere application server. Which means when you start that, common and core services will be brought up automatically, which should be up and running always. Why? Let me answer why do we need that. If we take metadata service, which means any metadata operation like adding a table, deleting a table, and modifying a table, if we do that, then what happens is those things will be taken care by using what we call metadata services. Yeah. And next is what we have, security services, which means, let us say we need to add or we need to create a user. In order to create a user, we have to have privileges. So in order to take care of such kinds of what we call access permissions, for that we have to have a separate service, namely security services. Similarly, we have a logging service, reporting service, which means what? Let us say you have performed some activity by using one of the client that we have in Datastage. Now, administrator or the monitoring person, if they need to know like what you have done, to take care of that, we have what we call logging service. Besides to that, in case if you want to notify like what you have done, then we have to take help from what we call reporting services. Yeah. So we also have unified service deployment, which means what? Assuming that you have done something in data stage, how do you make this output of this data stage is visible for other stakeholders, which means other tools like analyzer, quality stage. We have some more tools like a business glossary, metadata workbench, we have fast track, and so on. We have several tools within IBM InfoSphere information server, which means what? In order to make this particular output to be visible for other tools, we have to have separate service which we call unified service deployment. Yeah. So likewise, we have some more services. For example, let us say, how are we going to take care integration with third-party proprietary authentication tools like we have LDAP and so on, right? To take care of that, we also have what we call security-based tools, some more services that also will be brought up when you bring up what you call application server. Yeah. So that is what will happen with respect to what I call this common services. Yeah. Once we understand, the next thing is what the control will be sent to where engine, where parallel engine would come into picture, which means where the power of physical box, which means power of computer, will be utilized in parallel processing. That is where Datastage has become more popular. In the sense, Datastage has got very good parallelism techniques. As a result of that, we could able to process very large volume of data in what we call short span of time. That is where unified parallel processing would come into picture, which means the kind of parallelism techniques of what we have in Datastage will be used even in other tools as well, like we have quality stage and so on. Yeah, that is why we call unified parallel processing, which means what? There is a one parallel framework engine which will be utilized by several tools like analyzer, quality stage, data stage, and so on. That is why we call unified parallel processing, which means data or processing would be done in what we call less span of time. Once we do that, then the request will be sent back to what we call server, then on to what we call designer or quality stage or whatever, where you could able to see the status of what has happened. Yeah. Underneath, we have what we call connectivity things, in the sense, in case if you want to read the data from PDF documents, how are we going to take care? In case if you want to read the data from SAP, how do you do that? In case if you want to read the data from legacy, like mainframes, how do you do that? That is what you will see in the bottom, right? Structured, unstructured, applications, and mainframe. In data stage, we have got different connectors which will be used to connect to these different types and get the data onto this data stage environment and get it processed in short span of time. Yeah. So that is what will happen with what we call connectivity part. Yeah. So on the right side, you could also see metadata, which means we have to store metadata somewhere, right? For example, let us say metadata means what? Data over data, right? Let's say simple example is, let us say table. Where do you store this table? There should be a place, right? So place is here is what? DB2, IBM DB2, and we also use other database which we call UV, which is Universe, which is a file system based database, which is not listed as part of this, but Datastage will have that. Apart from that, this guy also supports other databases, namely Oracle and SQL Server. These are the what we call different databases where we could store metadata in terms of what we call design time metadata or operational metadata. Yeah. So that is what you will have it. Yeah. So these are the what we call different components, right? Yeah. So any questions here? So that once we what we call discuss questions, right? Then I'll talk about the next layer of or next level of this architecture. Yeah. Any questions here?
Hi, Sina.
Go ahead.
I mean, this architecture, will it be a bottom-up or a top-to-bottom approach? I mean, from connectivity to the user interface. I mean, the direction of the flow. What will be the direction of the flow?
The direction will be actually from top to bottom.
Okay.
In the sense, let us say we have a simple example, designer, where you will have different connectors to connect to what we call file or database, whatever. Once you connect it, then apply transformation, then you are going to send that request to what you call server, where common services would come into picture. Then control comes over to engine, in the sense server will delegate that particular request to engine, where parallel processing would take place. Then you will get a response back to server, then onto a client. But underlying in this particular diagram, you will see what you call this, there is a unified parallel processing part will be interlinked with the common connectivity, right? Which means what, though you do the connectivity part in designer, but actual connectivity happens from the engine side, which means engine has got different stages or operators we call, through which we could connect to this different types of source systems, like a file or table or whatever. Then it does connection, it is going to get connected and then start processing it by using parallel processing, and you will get the response back. That's what will happen internal. But if you think from the user perspective, you will be providing the connection in the designer. Yeah, but internally it happens this way. Fine.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Any other questions? So start asking more questions, so that anyway, once you start with a tool, I think you guys will ask more questions. Yeah.
I'll just one more question.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Since we all know that Datastage is a ETL tool, right? So, where, I mean, the target of that ETL, whatever transformation this particular tool is doing, it will be stored in a data warehouse, right? Where from the reporting tool will comes into picture. So,
right.
Where actually in this architecture, what actually the reporting tool interacts in which part of this architecture?
No, reporting tool part is not shown here, which is, see, because our focus is only Datastage, right? In the sense, mainly we are going to focus on transform layer, where I am trying to place the cursor. Can you see here? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have several components here, but our focus will be on transform only. And after that, we are going to build a data warehouse, right, by using a deliver. Then after that, reporting tool would come into picture. Make sense? So output of ETL would become as input to reporting tools, where we are going to load the data from the warehouse and start building reports. Yeah? Fine. Any other questions? Fine. Then, likewise, we can think of many examples. Let's say administrator has done some adding a user. Then add user request would be sent to what we call server, where common services would come into picture, like a security service. Then after that, the control will be jumped onto the engine, and then onto what we call user will get added onto the database. That is where on the right side you can see, which we call design time metadata. Yeah. Similarly, modify request, again from web console, you will get the request to server, which is the application server we call, where it is going to invoke security services. Then again, modifications should be done. Those modifications will be stored in what we call metadata. Yeah, which means these are what we call simple, what we call security based services. Yeah, but in designer, there is one more client, that's a designer in the Datastage context. As a designer, you have built some job. Then what happens? Control comes over to common services. Then it is going to make use of metadata services, because design job means what? Adding properties, adding columns, and so on, right? Which requires metadata service. Then it is going to get saved onto what we call repository, which is in DB2 or whatever. Yeah, and after that, when you run that particular job, then again a request will come out to common services, which is Datastage server, and then on to what you call parallel engine, remember, where this job would get invoked, then you'll get a response back to Datastage server, then on to designer, where you will see status of that particular job. Yeah. Similarly, we could think of many flows. So I'll explain detailed flows once we start actual training, because now it is too early to get into the too many details. Yeah, clear? So likewise, what you call, we have what you call, I'll talk about many things, like within data stage, what are the different components? This is what you call infosphere side, right? Within data stage, what are the different components? I'll talk about that each and everything in detail. Yeah, and we also have what you call, in data stage we have several stages which we are going to discuss as part of this training with practical examples. Remember, whatever we are going to discuss, all of them will be done by using a tool, which means the tool will be installed and where you guys can just practice it and start asking more questions. Yeah. So let us go very slowly and understand each and every part, and whichever the question or whatever kind of question that you have, you can ask at any time, so that you will get better clarity. That way will go as part of this training. Yeah, fine. So you can ask any kind of question, whether it's a simple question or complex question, at any time. I'm supposed to answer that. Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions, you can shoot out. If there are no questions, probably we can stop here. Yeah.
Sina, can we install Datastage in our machine and start practicing whatever jobs or whatever things you will be showing us? Can we practice it on our own?
Yes, we can do that.
Okay.
So you need to practice more and start asking more questions. So if you ask more questions, you'll get better clarity. That's how we need to do, right? So we need to make it more interactive so that you'll get better understanding, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions? So we have many topics which we'll cover as part of this training. So I didn't display. I hope you guys would have got the course content. Yeah. So I cover basic data stage, advanced data stage. So you can ask any kind of question at any time. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Okay then.
Sina, Sina, just a question. Could you please let us know the timing of the course, because we are very much interested to take the course. So.
Oh, you are in India,
when
right?
it will start? Yeah, I am in India.
So we'll start from day after tomorrow in the evening, which will be at what we call 8:30 p.m. Is that fine?
Yeah, it will be fine. May I know your contact number?
Yeah, that I probably need to talk to those guys, big classes guys. Yeah, so
okay,
you can talk to them. Yeah, once we start probably training, right? Then I can give my number. Yeah, right?
Okay, okay, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? So if there are no questions, then we'll stop here, and so we'll meet in actual training, right?
Okay. Thanks, Sina. Thanks a lot.
Okay. So as per job perspective, what will be the minimum experience required to get just a developer? If you have 2 years, that is fine. Yeah. So Datastage is, don't worry, it's not complex. Only thing you need to understand. If you don't understand properly, then it looks complex. But it's very simple. Yeah? We'll make it very simple. Don't worry. It's very simple if you understand the concept clearly. Yeah? Fine?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay then. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Bye.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Yeah.